In spite of the abundance of photocopying machines, many offices use stencil duplicators because of their cost-saving, large job capabilities. Stencil duplicators are also known as
getting the whole thing in.
They are not only cheaper to operate, but more versatile than the average office copying machine. This video program will introduce you to the functioning of a Garretson 420 duplicator, from stencil preparation to making copies. A wider range of material can be copied with a stencil duplicator than with the average photocopy machine. Here are some examples. Directories, postcards, handouts, bulletins, forms and cards, and calendars. Now we have here a comparison of the cost per copy between the Stencil Duplicator and your common office desktop copier. And if you look at the expense under supplies, you'll see that the Stencil Duplicator uses less supplies and the overall charge is less than your office copy machine. Your approximate charge is less than 3 cents a copy on the Stencil Duplicator, and this charge goes down the more copies you make. This is not true of an office photocopier, in which the charge is approximately 5 cents a copy. Another item of interest is energy, and this can be a real factor in more remote areas which need some sort of copy machine capability, and the life of the machine can be another factor. This machine is approximately 14 years old. The Stencil Duplicator has a life expectancy of about 3 times that of the desktop copier. They operate about 3 to 5 years on the average. Now we'd like to look at some stencils which you use on the Stencil Duplicator. This is an example of the typewriter stencil, something common to high schools and offices everywhere. You just type directly on a stencil, and this is one of several common ways of making stencils. This is another way of making stencils for the duplicator. This is known as an electronic stencil, and the electronic stencil is made on an electrostatic copier. Whatever the artwork or the original is on the right side of this machine is inscribed onto the stencil on the other side of the machine. And as we remove our stencil, this is what it looks like. Okay, we've shown you 2 of the common stencils used on the Stencil Duplicator, the typewritten one and the electrostatic one. After this demonstration, you'll be given a stencil such as this, and you'll be asked to demonstrate the correct procedure for operating the Stencil Duplicator. And we'll demonstrate that right now. The first thing you'll do is you'll lower the receiving tray, which is this tray on the right. You raise the little guards, the paper guards on the tray. And around here on the left is your feed board. You'll lower the feed board and slide out this little guard here on the left all the way to the end. Take whatever paper you'll be copying onto. Load your paper. Move this little guard forward. And drop this little guy down. He sits on the paper. Okay, over here you have a little knob called the feed board lift. And you'll turn it right to the right. And you'll feel it click into place. Okay, just clicked into place. So your receiving tray and your feeding tray are ready. This is the on-off switch. turn it on. With the machine on, you will ink it using the inking lever on top. You'll depress this inking lever several times until the screen looks nice and wet and kind of shiny. And now it's wet. Turn your switch off. And now you're ready to mount your stencil. Turn this around so you can see. Now you can rotate the drum using the handle. And you'll have this little lever on top which you'll open up like so. Take your stencil like this and place it, the little pukas over these little pins that fits right in on top, and lower this latch, and then you will rotate this drum forward, and your stencil will stick very nicely to the screen, which has been inked so it's nice and sticky. Depress this lever and rotate the drum a couple of times, and that ensures that your stencil will adhere to the screen. And you peel off this little backing sheet on the stencil, pull it down, rotate the drum slowly, and you can throw this away. And you've now mounted your stencil. Okay, push this back. Okay, now you can check the registration. That's how the stencil will copy onto the paper by depressing this little switch here. It's a feed switch. You push it down to where it says on. Okay, your feed switch is down. Now you're going to rotate the drum maybe 2 or 3 times. And your copies will come out over here. And the registration, you could move this thing up just a little bit. There's a little knurled knob here which says print height. And you just move it up a little bit. Okay. Now we'll turn our machine on. And you'll want your feed switch off. And say we want to make about 25 copies. You move the counter here. And when the machine makes 25, it'll automatically kick off. Okay, you depress your little feed switch here. And your copies come out on this side. If you want to speed up the machine, you turn this little knob down here to the right. Okay, our copies are all made, the counter is back at 0, and we can turn our switch off. And then you'll just want to inspect your copies. As you make a lot of copies, you'll need to re-ink, which is simply pulling the inking lever down. You'll see as the ink gets light on the copies. And we have 25 copies of operating the Stencil Duplicator. Okay, now we'll demonstrate taking the machine down. You'll lower the feed board by depressing a little switch in here. I don't know if you can quite see it. It's here right on the right. As you push it down, the feed board drops. You move this little paper guard back. Take your paper out. Move this back in again, and this board will go up. You take your paper out over here, lower the guards. You can take a piece of scratch paper or a copy you don't need and rotate the drum until the bottom of the stencil is about at this location. And what you do is just lift it up a little bit. It's tacky, so it should stick to this paper. Hold it with your thumb right at the edge so you don't get ink all over yourself. Rotate the drum. Lift the latch. Okay, you can throw the stencil away just like this. Or you can save it if you like. There are stencil folders for saving stencils, but that's another lesson. Now, closing the machine is simply a matter of putting the trays up. You put the cover on, and if you don't have a machine to practice on, just review the steps on your checklist.